What is up, people of the internet? I'm Adithyaa, and today we have a very, very exciting video lined up ahead. I have the opportunity to interact with Karthik Vinayagamoorthi, a close personal mentor of mine. The reason why we have brought him today for our YouTube channel is because Karthik is a person who has a lot of diverse experiences. He graduated from NIT Trichy, and even during the 4 years of college, he has done so much, being a part of a lot of clubs and societies. He started his own club, he was a part of NCC, and towards the end, he got one of the best jobs on campus. Immediately after NIT Trichy, he worked at ITC for a period of 2 years, and after that, he left his well-paying job to start his own company. So he worked on 2 startups during this particular time, and he has a lot of experience with entrepreneurship and startups also. After this, he went to Babson College in the United States to pursue his master's in business administration. And immediately after this, he joined CS Associates as a management consultant. And while doing all of this, he regularly mentors a lot of students from around the world. So it would be absolutely amazing to get to know his thoughts, his opinions on a lot of topics from student life, entrepreneurship, and B school and higher degrees and working in the United States and India. So this is going to be a jam-packed video with a lot of information. So there are timestamps that will be there in the description. So if you want to skip any part of the video, feel free to do so. So before I see you on the other side, let's roll the intro. Hi Karthik, hope you're doing well. Just wanted to say that I'm very, very excited for this particular video. I think there are a lot of reasons for that. I think one reason would be that we've had a lot of deep conversations about a lot of topics in the past, like how to find passion and everything. And I genuinely love those conversations, doing those conversations with you, having those conversations with you. And I just feel that, putting all of those conversations, opinions, perspectives in a public forum will be helpful for a lot of people. And that's one of the primary reasons why we've invited you. So I think the first question that I kind of have for you is that, back when you joined NIT Trichy, what was your expectation, or what are the goals that you kind of had that you wanted to accomplish during the 4 years?
They say bad decisions make a good story. My decision to come to NIT was obviously like everybody else. I was aiming for the IITs and I really flopped in my JEE entrance examination. And that day was so bad, I came back to my car with my dad. I told him, like, I don't think I'm going to get into IIT. And he was like, it's okay. That's exactly how I felt when he got in. Imagine being the son of an IIT, and that's like the worst thing ever. Like, right from the time you're born, they're like, oh, are you preparing for IIT? Well, I'm just 3 years old, ma'am. Like, I can't do that right now. So that expectation is just stuffed on your head. They want you to grow up that way. And then on the day of the exam, when you really do not do well, and you tell people, they're in disbelief. They're like, this cannot really happen. And they're like, you have to, really believe in the truth. This is called reality distortion, blah, blah, blah. You will get through. And I'm like, no, I know pretty sure when I do something bad, because I've done that so many times in my IIT coaching classes. So my expectation of NIT was, will I at least compensate for not making it to IIT? That's it. Like, will I do something useful in NIT through my 4 years and get a job or a career prospect that an IIT can make? And as simple as that, nothing more.
Okay, got it. So, knowing you, I know that you've done a lot of things in college. So could you just give like a quick overview of non-academic stuff that you kind of did in college? We'll touch academics later on, but yeah, non-academically, what are the different things that you kind of did in college?
I did a lot. In fact, I did not do much academically. I must have switched through 4 girlfriends through college. That's a memory I know, but I don't share obviously a lot. But I thought I'd share today on this platform. I joined NCC during my first and second year, and like won a huge award as part of it. I also started many clubs coming out of NCC. One of them being Third Dimension, which is an arrow modeling club. One of them being a social responsibility group as part of our cultural festival. One of them being an exclusive club for people who like speaking on a mic called Mocktail. It later became something else. And then I've also been part of several other small interest groups, but these are the 3 I actively started. Apart from this, I've had some fun, failing exams, acting in short films, taking a very active part in some of our most hilarious cultural events. kind of scripting the stories for them, and those things happened. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So one thing that every time that I talk to you about like college life, I get to know something new about you that you did in college. Like literally so many things that you kind of did, right? So that's really, really great. Like hats off to you regarding that. You kind of made the best out of whatever NIT Trichy could offer. So I think the first question that I kind of had about all of these experiences was, time at NCC. Honestly, when that time comes in college where we have to take decisions on what kind of clubs that you have to join, I was thinking about NCC, but one of the reasons why I did not apply was because of in the early you have to get up early in the morning, right? Around like 5 o'clock to go for the practice and everything. And the moment that I heard that, I did not really go for it. But I would love to know how your experience was with respect to NCC.
Sure.
How did it go?
You should definitely know about my story of why I joined, and that pretty much dictates what I did later after that. I was in my first year,
sure,
and I joined pretty late. My first day of school was pretty late, and I did not get over any of the orientations from clubs. I was just like tagging along with my friends and chit-chatting and having fun, drinking, whatever. One of my friends, I'm just going to call him Aravind for the sake of this video, he saw a really beautiful girl in NCC, and he went to orientation, he attended this, and he came back and said, Macha, this girl is like amazing now, like totally, I want to go impress her. Can you come along? I'm like, what the fuck? If you want to impress, why do you want to take me along? Like, no. We can make jokes at each other and make fun and blah blah. So I'm like, fine, okay. If I don't care if it's NCC or not, I'm gonna help you as a friend. So we went, both of us went, and then this girl I see who's like actually really beautiful was my school senior. And I was like, oh shit, what is she doing here? And when did she become hot? Like, how can a girl from school suddenly turn hot overnight in college? And I was like, I told him, this is my school senior, like, you need to trust me. And he's like, then you need to set up the introduction for me. You need to be my wingman. And I was like, what? Look at her. She's wearing some NCC uniform. She's giving commands. She looks pretty strict and awesome. How the hell can I introduce you to her? And, but still, that happened right after the conversation. So the introduction happens, they both meet each other, and suddenly this girl who was like very timid and stuff like that. In fact, when that girl was dating a guy in school, that guy was expelled from school because she was such a good academician. This girl becomes an NCC senior and is so strict and strong, and I just see a totally different side of her. I'm shocked. I'm like, is this what NCC can do to me? I had that kind of a belief. And a couple of meetings later, both my friend Aravind and the girl who he was like looking at, they both quit NCC. And me being jobless in school, in college, did not know what to do. So I just kept going for the everyday session. At the end of every session, they'll give us some snacks and some tea. And I just thought, okay, why not? Just why not? Let me just hang along. And then suddenly one day they announced saying, you have been selected the top 30 people. And I was like, what? What just happened? So I was not planning NCC. Okay. In fact, I thought it's impossible given my history of having asthma since childhood. But then NCC just happened on its own. And I'm not really good at sports or like other cultural activities. But NCC like kind of opened my doors. It allowed me to give a speech in the first year of college for Independence Day in Tamil. And that speech was like widely spoken. It was shared on the platforms of those days. It was Orkut. So that got me some attention.
Which one was it?
Orkut, yeah. It got me a lot of attention. And naturally, attention brewed interest, and I continued in NCC. So that's pretty much how I entered NCC. So it was more like go with the flow. You don't know what's happening. You can't really plan for this shit. Whatever comes your way, just keep happening. And then one thing led to another. So I'm happy to share more about what happened after that, subsequent decisions as well, if you're interested.
Yeah, so one thing that I generally want to know was that from your NCC experience that you had, like what was the biggest learning that you had?
You can't plan for shit. You just have to go with the flow. Like in NCC, I did some crazy stuff. One of them being, going to these different camps. As part of college, they take you to one camp. But in this one camp, you're along with your fellow classmates and college mates. So you're in very comfortable space. A few of these students get selected and are taken to other camps where you get to meet people from other parts of India.
Okay. Yeah.
And these guys are like super serious about life. They want to make it to the UPSC. They want to make it to something else in the Indian Army or something like that. I had no such interest. Like I was like, Indian Army and me, no way. I mean, I'm too undisciplined to even join these places. But to be against them and get the feeling of what patriotism is like at that level was something else. There used to be this quote in the army that people say, which says, "You need to sweat in peace to avoid bleeding in war." And like, that powerful quotes like that, I've never heard in my life. Like, I just come back, cook to NIT the day after camp gets over, and I'll have my friend who's smoking up in the next room saying like, "Masha, come, let's chill." like that's the kind of people I hang out with in college. And then I go meet these guys who are like, literally, they're willing to die for the nation. One part of my NCC camp which happened in Delhi, towards the end of it, they were recruiting from the Israeli army. And I was like, why would the Indian army train people, cadets, and export them to Israel to have them work there? In fact, the Israeli army, the language, the English they were speaking wasn't even understandable, to the extent that I had to translate it for the local cadets who were getting trained. And the reason is, like, Indian army does not even have money to raise ethical, good, high quality individuals. So they don't even mind selling their own talent, brain drain, even in terms of army and stuff. So these worlds were so different. I did not know there was a career in the defense forces. I didn't know there were people who were so passionate and who grew up from day one willing to sacrifice their nation someday. And like the people they personify, the lives they live, the kind of dreams they have are so different that I thought, okay, you can't really plan for shit. In fact, my biggest memories from NCC has been, one day I go for my camp. This was the camp in a remote place in Chennai. I'm part of 60 people who are being trained for taking us to the Janpath walk in Delhi, which happens on 26th of January. So we are like trained intensively and giving food. And I was this really sophisticated kid because I came from an engineering college, which nobody else did. I came from a family that could afford to give me lunch and stuff like that. And then I was sleeping. The next day morning, all my stuff, my shoes, my thing, everything gets lost. And I was like, why would you guys do this? Oh my God. And so I had to literally go call my camp commander, and my camp commander and me went to the nail store to buy everything from my underwear, like locally. Everything was stolen because these guys thought I came from privilege. So I was like, you cannot plan for shit. Like I remember the day I called my parents and I said, Amma, Appa, you won't believe what I'm wearing, this branded underwear. And they felt so bad they had to take a flight, come and see me and say, don't worry, we'll figure that out for you. And I'm like, no.
My God,
if I have to be in these places, I need to learn these things, and I might as well learn, on the ground when I can, than before I take off on my own and learn things. So yeah, you can't plan for shit.
Got it. Yeah. I think that's nice. That's a nice tagline. Can't plan for shit. Whatever you learned from the NCC. That's nice. So, like you mentioned, apart from NCC, you also like started your own club, which is a 3D arrow modeling club. You were also the head of a fest. So you've kind of led teams in like a college environment, and subsequently in the corporate world, you've started your own company. A lot of things that have happened. But yeah, I'd love to know like what was your biggest learnings from like leading a team in a college environment? How was that experience for you?
Out of the many things I've led, I'll talk about one very, very memorable experience for me. And by way of that, I'll tell you how leading teams in college is. So by the time I've completed my third year, I had led a lot of teams, and it really put me in a spotlight. So any team I go into, they would just listen to what I'm saying. I was like a celebrity within campus for a very short time. So in final year,
so you had that clout.
Yeah, I had that clout, at least in college, and then life happened. But in final year, when nobody was taking like responsibility to organize my department's cultural festival, it was called Synergy. I was in the mechanical department. I was like, why don't I step in and support my roommate? He was the club president, and nobody else was supporting him. So I just stepped in and said, I'm going to be the coordinator for activities and stuff. So I walk in and try to inspire my classmates, and they're like, fuck it, mechanical thing sucks. We don't do anything useful. And most people, like, they're really interested in hosting a cultural festival because girls wear saris, like, being honest. But then mechanical department does not have any girls. So there's nobody to watch in a sari. So there's nothing really fun happening. So they're like totally disinterested. And least of all, there's like, you're not going to get enough money, sponsors, because people don't want to recruit mechanical engineers. Without money, you're not going to have food stalls. Without food stalls, it's not even interesting to come down. All of that stuff. So I was like, okay, my classmates are useless. We're not going to be able to inspire them. They're anyway in their final year. They will probably want to cancel classes and chill. So then we went to the first years. And then we thought, okay, this is a group that we can definitely inspire and, bring a sense of commitment to this overall project. We called them all into a room, into one single room. And then we told them about an age-old rivalry. If you've heard, there's an age-old rivalry between mechanical department and some circuitral departments, like your ECE or your computer science and stuff. All I did was touch that nerve. Yeah. I touched that nerve and I told them how much I hated the opposite circuitral department's cultural festival and how they've been trying to show off continuously about them being very successful and us being like bullshit, in spite of both of our festivals happening on the same day in different venues. That touched a nerve through the entire first year batch, and they got so inspired that they went a little ahead of everything else. I mean, they were inspired enough to do things which we never had done before in a festival for mechanical department, like painting graffiti on walls, hosting the largest food stall counter, having cultural events, even for a just small festival, and blah, blah, blah. But in spite of all of that, the biggest achievement, I mean, not a biggest achievement, biggest tragedy was that these guys got so angry, pretty much like your RSS, that they started attacking the opposite department's cultural festival.
My God.
They went and tore their posters, they went and closed their events, they went and stole the keys for their exhibition halls and blah, blah. It was chaos, and they used to come and tell me, we did this, this guy's going to suffer. And I'm like, bro, no. We were only trying to inspire you to do our festival well, not destroy the opponent. Like, you don't have to go that extent. But and then the same group of people who worked with me during the college, they came and worked with me during my first startup. But then what I realized was they weren't just as passionate, and I was curious, what's happening? Why are people so passionate to work in college, in these cultural festivals and blah blah blah? But they aren't exhibiting the same kind of fervor and passion to go over and above in real life for the institution they're part of. And that gave me my biggest lesson, that when it comes to work-life balance, there is always this one aspect in life that needs to keep going on at a normal pace, that gives you security, that gives you a peace of mind. And college has that figured out for you. These great engineering colleges have, like, your academics, it goes on a schedule. You have your tests and everything. Your placements, it goes on a schedule, and they really put you in proper NIT places people really, really well. So these things, since they're kind of figured out for most people, they want to look for other opportunities that they can feel alive. And college teams are places that they feel alive. They want to like literally do everything they can to feel alive, be on the brink of risk, take up more and more things that they had until then imagined impossible, and if they have somebody they can like take inspiration from, even if that person did not do something significant, if they can take inspiration from them about doing something which they find risky and like cult-like status at that point of time, they want to feel alive in that moment, right? Whatever it may be. So the beauty about leading college teams is that you can really tap into this feeling of making someone feel alive, and then be honest to that feeling. Like if you want to be honest to that feeling, give them that option, and they will do anything to to make this happen.
No, that's absolutely true. Because if I look back at my experience so far, it was like literally every team was kind of like a cult. Like we really just wanted to like feel alive and do all of these different things in college, because we always had that safety net with respect to placements, getting money from parents. All of those things were kind of sorted for us. And the only thing where we could like experiment, try out new things, go on trips was just to like clubs and societies. So it kind of like made us alive. Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. A lot of memories gets made, in that process. Yeah. So beautifully said, Karthik. The next question that I kind of wanted to know was that, during the 4 years of your college life, once everything is over right now, what is the biggest regret that you had? What would you do differently if you'd go back to college right now? Would you change anything, or are you completely fine with all of the mistakes that you did?
I'm okay. Yeah, that was one mistake that I definitely regret, and this kind of made my final year kind of very. I felt alone and in solitude. But apart from that, most of the mistakes I did, I think it was a very big part of making who I am and who I was. Um, yeah. Okay, maybe two regrets then, as I think about it. One is I definitely did not assume that I was good at academics, and because assumed I was not good at academics, I did not apply to scholarships. I did not like socialize with people who were applying, aspiring for GRE or applying to masters in science and blah blah. And when I eventually came to the US, I met these same people who I thought were academic legends back in college, but they weren't. Like where they have come is very normal places, and in fact, they're in terms of like what they're working as right now, I see them doing very normal roles. So I built up a misconception about my own capability being academically weak, and it took me a lot of years to come out of that feeling. And when I actually topped my university during my MBA program, it was like a reassurance to myself saying, hey, you're actually academically strong. You can top a university, even at a US college. So that construct I had, because I was in such intense competition all around me, I built this construct that I'm not meant for this path, and I never even explored it. So that is one regret I definitely have. I think we should not build those constructs about ourselves before we even take risk and lean into a certain path. And then the other regret I had was
one question that I have for you is that how important do you think is academics in undergraduate? Like, do you think that people should score like very high marks?
Absolutely
what is your
not.
perspective on that? It's a bit of a controversial question, but
no, academics doesn't matter. I mean, you need to have some kind of a safety net in terms of your education, your GPA, if you especially want to pursue a higher education. But if your higher education is not your goal, then what you do in college academically absolutely doesn't matter. Nobody gives shit. Like, you can get into the best consulting companies in the world, and you are evidence of that, Adi. You can get into the best consulting companies in the world in spite of not having a great GPA. So, like, academics, you just need it's your like baseline. You just need to survive it. You don't need to like excel at it in order to get higher.
Yeah.
That's
So my point of view on academics is that people should have like a decent GPA, because the way that I think about academics and everything is in terms of like opening and closing doors. Like, you can do all of like 101 things in college, but if you have like a higher GPA, I feel that it definitely like opens a lot of doors. Like with respect to like scholarships, like with respect to opportunities to go abroad, and a lot of actually companies, to be really honest, even consulting companies, they have like a very, very high GPA benchmark, like when it comes to recruit. So yeah, I think it's not needed that you need to have like the highest GPA above 9.5 and be like always studious, but yeah, you need to be like balance between like academics and doing a lot of extracurricular activities and everything is just like my point of view on that. But Karthik, so
it kind of makes whatever opportunities you're seeking easier to access if you have a better GPA. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it definitely increases your probability, like whatever happens. So that's there. So what was the second point that you were saying? The second regret?
Second regret was not something I'm proud of, but again, this is the first time I'm sharing it. I thought after 8 years of it happening, it's safe to share. Was that during this peak of attention, right, in college, I did not know what was right and wrong. Like, whatever I did was right because everybody would accept it. But then I was at one point in time, with a small phase, I was two-timing, meaning I had two girlfriends at the same time. And that really backfired. Not a good decision. It's good. It's enough to be loyal to one person and not be loyal to two people just because you get attention. So when that news came out, naturally people were pissed. People close to me. One of them happened to be someone in the clubs that I worked in which there's a cultural status where a more senior scholar student cannot date somebody more junior. and I was dating somebody more junior with me in that club. So not everybody else got aggravated. And in another place, I was dating someone else, and these two people hated each other. And I should have made a choice, put my leg down, and said I'm going one way or going no way. But I didn't do any of that. Like it was, peak attention, and my hesitation to say no one way or the other really backfired, and I lost a lot of friends, a lot of respect, and my final year there was a phase for 2-3 months of kind of depression. I was like, what the hell am I doing, and all of that stuff. Slowly I recovered. Both those people are now married and happy. But yeah, here I am, and it was a wound that took its own time to recover and come back normal.
Yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that when we are in a college environment, we have like a lot of freedom to do a lot of things. But at that particular point, we really don't have that maturity because we have not really faced the real world. So one very deep question that I always think about is that in a college environment, how do we really differentiate between right and wrong? Like how do you think that like we should navigate that? Because there is no right or wrong, to be really honest. That's like a separate philosophical topic on its own. But how do you think college students should go ahead with this? This particular thing, making the right decisions, making wrong decisions.
Very difficult question, Ali. I would love to listen to your perspective as well on this. But I think you should have a small inkling of reality, small inkling of what you want to do in the future, and whether that future thing that you want to do is even feasible in the first place. For like 4 years in college, I had no clue what I was going to do after. And I just kept going with the flow, and eventually one day when placements came and I wanted to get into a company, I was like, oh my God, this is an uphill battle I absolutely had not prepared for. So I guess some kind of speaking to people outside the bubble of college and asking them, what is reality? How can I make it into reality eventually? Having some inkling of reality. My idols, the people I tried to idolize back when I was in college, were people like the Indian Zuckerbergs, right? Who quit their college life and started this small company right at this thing. But then I did not realize how far-fetched from reality those icons were. Like how many failures later, how much privilege later these people are at the place where they are, right? Not everybody gets into a TL scholarship and becomes like a great entrepreneur. Yeah. So I had absolutely no clue. I just thought, because I'm an NITT Trichy and because I was doing these many things, I was invincible, undefeated. And when I start later, I will get funding and all of that stuff. So I was stuck in my bubble, and I wish other people would have some conversations to find an inkling of reality of what they want to be. That's more than enough.
Yeah.
What about you, Adi?
No, that's actually like part of the reason why we even started this YouTube channel itself. Like we wanted to have conversations with a lot of people, try to understand how they have made their decisions, and try to influence and help a lot of people make like well-informed decisions, and at least help them understand what is right and wrong for themselves. Like we can't just generally say what's right and wrong, but make them understand like a lot of diverse perspectives, let them know all of these things, and then help them make their decision. I think my point of view on this particular topic again is like kind of very similar. If you look at college, there are two extremes. Like if you look at the people who are like very, very stubborn and they feel that whatever they're doing is right. And the other hand, they are like very indecisive, where they always depend on others to like make all of their decisions. I kind of feel that there should be like some proper balance along with like fundamental things like empathy, humility, where you always listen to other people. Like I always kind of follow that, but where I try talking to a lot of people, try to understand their point of view with respect to any topic for that matter. And then, I kind of go into like a cocoon where for like 1 week, I'll just be thinking about all of these different perspectives and then kind of make a decision on that. I think this is with respect to anything, choosing your career path, your opinions on like political stuff, a lot of controversial stuff, literally anything. I feel it's very important for people to listen to diverse perspectives and then kind of make like an informed decision. But yeah, I mean, this is a huge conversation, on its own. But yeah, coming back to one point that you kind of mentioned, right, where for like 4 years of college, you didn't really know what you wanted to do immediately afterwards. But how did you finally make that decision? Because ultimately, some point, you had to go join the corporate world and do everything, right? So you also got into one of the best companies which comes on campus, which is ITC. One of the highest paid also, but yeah, I'm not trying to sell ITC over here, but which is definitely like an amazing company. But love to know how you made that particular decision and why you wanted to join ITC.
Uh, okay, first of all, I didn't make these decisions. It happened for me. Uh, my first goal in life was to eventually join the Indian Air Force. So what happened was back in second year, like I said, I won an award from Dr. Manmohan Singh as the best NCC cadet in the entire Air Force across India. When I won this award, I was
That's crazy.
yeah,
Okay.
like too good. I mean, my best time in my life.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
won that on January 26th. I came on Doordarshan and all that shit. Came back to college, and I was
Yeah.
like, Indian Air Force for the world. By the way, NCC in NITT is affiliated to Indian Air Force. So I just thought, okay, since I don't have the kind of vision and the height required for Air Force pilots, obviously I'm not as sexy as well. So I'd rather become a Air Force technical wing cadet. And technical wing as well has extremely good growth. And with NITT and Air Force, I thought I can really make it. I was completely focused on that. And when I was doing that in my third year, because I won this award, the government called me back and they said, will you represent us as a cultural ambassador at Singapore in their Air Force? And like this 16 cadets from all the nations which had a youth army wing were selected to go to Singapore and represent their individual countries. So being part of that 16-member cohort, worldwide cohort, was an extremely exclusive opportunity. And then I spoke to my parents and I'm like, this is amazing. Let's make this happen. And then I submit my passport. Now the thing is, my parents a long time back had traveled to Australia, and when they were there, I was born there. So I hold my passport as an Australian, and the Indian government did not accept this. Naturally,
Okay.
they're like, why the hell will a foreigner get an
Okay.
Indian award?
Yeah.
So they said, either you go to Singapore and become
Yeah.
an Indian, or you revoke your award. I mean, give up the award that you won at a national level, saying that you did fraud. And I was like, what? What? I didn't do fraud. Like, I mean, in my papers, I declared that I was not an Indian. Obviously, nobody's checking paperwork in college. So they just overlooked it and they thought that is a fatal mistake, some really big prank, and they just cancelled Australian and they put Indian themselves. Reality hit me. I asked
Oh
my
my.
parents, can I
Okay.
become an Indian right now? And they're like, no, we're not going to let you change your passports right now. If all your paperwork is associated with you being a foreigner. And I'm like, what? What's happening here? So I had to decline the opportunity to go to Singapore and represent the nation. I felt so bad. So, fine, and then I convinced myself that if it's not Air Force, I'm going to pursue your IAS exams, your UPSC. I started preparing for that for a brief period of time during my third year, and then that kept going on. Then eventually, one thing happened after the other. And when placements came, I'm like, oh my God, I need a job. Everybody's getting a job, and I need a job. All these people with great GPAs are stuck without getting a job right now. And I'm in a department that does not have many high-paying job offers like mechanical. So let me just try anything I can to get a job. I do not know how the market worked. So I sat for any placement that came my way. I had a history of arrear in third year, not because I failed an exam, but because the professor who saw me in the exam marked me as absent after the exam, and his hatred was that I went for NCC and ignored his classes. And I told him, hey, I did not
Okay.
ignore your classes for shit. I ignored your classes to win an award from Manmohan Singh. Like, that's really a big deal. Everybody in college is celebrating it. Why can't you
Okay.
see it?
Yeah.
And he's like, no. If you were really serious, you should have taken your textbooks with you to Delhi and all that stuff. It was really hurtful. He embarrassed me. He embarrassed my family. None of the professors were against him because he was the head of the staff organization and blah blah politics. So I had a history of arrear. So most companies would reject me at the eligibility round itself, saying that you have this history. It was a very difficult period. I would just keep going into companies, speaking, seeing any chance to get to the interview round, because at the interview round I was very confident I'll really crack it through. That was the easier part for me. But getting through the first eligibility criteria was the difficult part. So the first company I actually got placed at was UTC, which makes helicopters and an air conditioner named Carrier. It was paying a pretty low wage.
Yep.
I recall it was 6 lakhs per annum back then, and I was really happy. Like, so thank God. And then a couple of months later, they said, few candidates who are earning below 10 lakhs per annum can sit for a second placement. And ITC came on board.
Okay.
And I was like, what? ITC rejected me during its internship period because I had a history of an arrear. But now that I cleared that arrear, they said you can sit for the final placement. I was like so excited. I went in, and ITC was like miraculous interview. It was 3 times more in terms of the pay wage. And when I finally got it, as the only guy who got it, I felt on top of the cloud. So I think these decisions were more like serendipity. They happened to me rather than me happening to them. And none of the things I planned for, like I said, happened. Like they all went out of the way. In fact, I wanted to quit my ITC job after I got it to start an NGO sort of. My friend and I, three of us, we pitched a great idea in different schools in Chennai. And we also got an investor who was ready to fund us. The idea was to create a platform that works similar to Udaan and few other platforms today. Basically a crowdsourcing platform for different social initiatives. We made a pitch deck, we went and pitched, we got attention from Tai, the Indus entrepreneur, to get a seed funding initially. Back then it was 3.5 lakhs to just get the thing started. So I thought I'll quit my ITC job to actually go do that. Until my friend said he cannot continue because he had to go back to his home country and stuff like that. But even for that, luckily I did not quit ITC, and I did not start this NGO. I took up the offer on campus, which turned out to be a very good decision later. So, I mean, all unplanned, all serendipity, all worked out well.
Yeah. Coming back to the tagline, can't plan for shit. I think that was like your theme for whole of your college life. Yeah, that's great. So I think we'll move on to probably the next section of this particular video, where we're going to talk a little bit about like your corporate life in your first few years in the corporate world. So the moment you join ITC, you have all of this freedom, you have this steady inflow of money and everything. So I would love to know what was the biggest difficulty that you kind of faced in the first 1 to 2 years when immediately you joined ITC?
I mean, to be honest, the biggest difficulty I faced was thinking corporate life is all about steel and metal and glass walls, but then actually being placed in a factory. And the factories I was placed in were in the remotest parts of India. I was in Sarangpur, in UP, I was in Munger, in Bihar, and I've not even heard of these places before that in my geography textbook. So I go to these places where they're speaking Bhojpuri and different dialects of Hindi, and I did not grow up learning Hindi properly for some reason. So for me to adapt and understand different dialects of Hindi was extremely difficult. I suffered and suffered and suffered. My mindset of corporate life was defined by my parents going to an IT company. But then that's not how all corporate companies work. In fact, the more closer you are to like an operations role, like fulfillment, supply chain, manufacturing, you're going to be pretty far fetched from those setups, and you'll have to learn how to work on the ground and adapt. So it was more like NCC 2.0 for me, rather than thinking about this high life, corporate life, where I'm like, enjoying the benefits and perks of this big, huge steel concrete structure. Yeah.
Okay. So your experience at NCC definitely helped you then.
Kind of. Yeah, I didn't want to be reminded of the hardship, but it happened later.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. So the next question that I wanted to know was that there are certain skills that will be like very helpful, especially if you want to thrive in the corporate world and climb the corporate ladder. So to a college student, if you were to advise on certain skills that they should build in order to be ready for the corporate world, I know like we can't think too much ahead, but if you were to give like any tips, what would that be? Like what would be those skills that they should work on?
My God, I hate giving tips, but let me try. Okay, I'll just focus on 2 specific things, which I think matter a lot. One is communication, and by communication, I'm not talking about your ability to speak to your friends and speak in that, or being extremely strong in the vernacular. I'm being very specific about thought leadership. So communication in a way that can influence other people. It can either be in the written medium, it can be in the speaking medium, or some other medium. Doesn't matter what medium it is. But if you can find a way to influence without authority through your communication, There's nothing like it. One of the biggest things I see people suffer with is
True.
strong leaders who in India, they become strong not because of their communication skills, but because of their aura. Like this guy has done so much, and people don't listen to it. This girl has done so much. She's accomplished so much despite the odds. Let's listen to her. So your aura makes up for your speaking. And when these people are transplanted to a different country, that aura disappears. It's like Narendra Modi coming to a completely new South African country. Nobody even knows you. Like we don't care about your radio show back in All India Radio, stuff like that. Like, so when the aura is removed, all you've got is your voice, and if that voice cannot, you know, stir or influence somebody in a different country in a different medium, you are going to fall back, and that's where most Indians end up taking pure tech jobs because tech again credentials speak for them instead of them influencing the other people's perceptions. If you see the management cadre or the strategy cadre and the technical cadre in the world, the technical cadre, at least in the US, is dominated by Asians and Indians, whereas the management cadre isn't. That's because they have the voice of reason, the voice of influence, the voice of making change happen. So I think from college, if we take concerted efforts to develop that voice of influence, it will go a long way, and it's definitely possible. I've seen people do it in hiding. I did not know why they were doing it, but then they eventually made it to huge MBAs. I realized it all played well for them. That was one. Another thing that I can think of is do not stay away from risky opportunities. If there's one place that you can deal with adversity, deal with the ambiguity, deal with everything that can go wrong in your life and survive past it, it's college. So set yourself up for failure. It's okay, even for a brief period of time. But do not make these decisions. I know these wise friends of mine used to come and say, "Oh, that's too risky in second year of college." I'm like, what risk do you have? And stay away from certain things, or would hesitate to do something because it did not get them recognition to do a master's later, or did not get the recognition that will look good on their resume or profile. So if you were to think of everything, every experience of yours as a bulleted point on your resume eventually, or on your LinkedIn profile, that's probably not what the right approach to take. You are missing out on opportunities to deal with ambiguity. And if you cannot deal with ambiguity within the safe cocoon of your own college life, when ambiguity hits you later in life, you'll be too risk averse to even take those options. Then financial hardships come in, then responsibilities and bullshit come in. So you will not be ready to take those risks, and then you'll have to pay back education loans. You'll have to take care of your parents. These considerations will prevent you from taking this very simple risks, like should I ditch tonight badam milk to go to the farthest bus all the way to Tanjore, which is like a few miles away, and drink something there and come back, even though I know I may not get a return ticket at later the night. Something like that. As crazy as that, if you're not going to take those options, is a very NITT thing. But as crazy as that, if you don't do those things in college, you will definitely regret not doing them later. So, not everything in life is a resume line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. Let me just say that I definitely miss the late night badam drinks in Trichy.
Absolutely.
That's definitely there. But yeah, like you mentioned, I kind of feel that college is an amazing platform for people to like explore and experiment with like so many different things. That's definitely there that people will judge you a little bit, but like how does that eventually matter? Because once you get into the corporate world, you start off with a clean slate again. Like there's no one there to judge you. So you can just explore, experiment so many different things, take so many different risks that are there because you kind of already have that safety net. You're kind of assured a job in most of the cases. You have like, all of these TNP, academics, everything that's kind of set, right? So that's always there. So it's always better to like explore and experiment like so many different things. So in college life, there's this one thing where, usually with respect to money, right? Parents usually send us that money and we always have that sense of comfort. We get probably around some 1K, 2K per month. I don't know. That was my case every month. And I was like allowed to spend, which was like more than enough for me. But once I get into the corporate world, I'm getting into it right now, and slowly I'm going to get like a steady income stream and everything. So one thing, it's a very deep question. I would love to know how money changed you, or did money change you at all? Like once you got that, how was it for you?
Oh my God, great! Adi, you're asking like philosophical questions, things that I thought about on my own a lot. So yeah, I mean, like just like you, during my first year of college, my dad gave me 1,000 rupees per semester, and that's all that I got. And then towards my final year of college, he gave me 1,000 rupees per month because now he felt like my son has got a placement, he should have fun and all that stuff. Uh, and then here and there, I used to win some awards with some additional cash and give treats to my juniors. But I felt like that was itself a very luxurious life. Suddenly, from that, you catapult into a high-paying job, and you're paying so much, you're earning so much money that you not know what to spend on. Like literally, your first paycheck comes in, and you're like, "Whoa!" So my first paycheck, my parents asked me to give it to charity, and I was like, "Who cares about charity?" And then I gave it to college, to all the clubs that I was part of. Not a very wise decision because most of those clubs don't exist right now. But I'm happy I did that just to help my juniors because I know what it meant to live within 1,000 rupee budget per month versus have a lot of money in their hands. The second month, as soon as cash came, I was like, I saw my roommate. He's from a well-to-do family, so he could afford stuff. I thought I should buy a extremely expensive phone. Back then, there was a Samsung Galaxy Tab 3. It was 40,000 rupees, and I was so excited to buy that. I'm like, oh my god, now I am fucking rich. I want to start spending. I buy this phone and then and I buy a brand new laptop, a really expensive one that came with me for a lot of years. So I video call my parents on my phone and show them the laptop, and my sister jumps in and she's like, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Is this how you behave when you start making money? Look at you, you're so arrogant when you make money and you're spending so much money on a laptop." And I was thinking, well, you spoke about the laptop, but the phone I'm talking in as well is super expensive. I'm not going to talk about it to you right now. So I suddenly felt like, why are these people overreacting? Isn't it my money that I've earned and when I'm spending? So my first thing that happened to me was thinking it was my money. Uh, that it definitely is built on a lot of factors that have taken you to where you are. And if you spend some time thinking that this is not your money per se, but it's the money of all the people who have invested in you, you'll be a little more responsible, I feel, at the very beginning. And somebody had to remind me of that. Uh, but the next thing that happened to me was definitely, I think money gave me freedom to help other people. And I didn't believe in charity per se. I don't believe in charity even now. But I wanted to help some people genuinely who had dreams and who wanted to take the next step. So whenever somebody came to me with an idea, I would just send them like 1 lakh and tell them, do what you want. It's fine. I can take the risk that I can in life and let me deal with it, but you do what you want. So it kind of really empowered me in the sense that I felt I could create opportunities that I couldn't have without the money. In fact, there were 3 interns I hired from NITT during when I was working, who had to come and work with me in Kolkata to start my startup. Eventually, when I quit my job, it was the money that I made that served as a buffer for me for my own startup. So money did change me in the sense it made me feel really empowered. I was not a very responsible saver, but I think money also made me arrogant at one point where I felt like I did not owe my gratitude to anybody for what I earned. So yeah, that's what money did to me.
Yeah. And again, like, getting money, salary, and everything, again, it's like the next safety net, right? Like when college, TNP is kind of your safety net and academics and everything. In the corporate world, once you start getting that steady inflow of money, that again becomes like a safety net, you become comfortable. So there's this famous quote, I think I just remembered, which is that, the salary is the drug they give you to kind of forget your dreams. It's again a controversial topic, but your journey has been that you worked at ITC for like a couple of years, and then you left it to like pursue entrepreneurship. So how did you make that particular decision, like leaving all like money, salary, a steady inflow behind, and then going to start your own company? So what are the factors that you took into consideration when doing that?
Great question. The first factor was that I was not putting anyone at risk. My parents had saved up for themselves sufficiently, and my sister was also like self independent and blah blah. So the fact that I was not putting anybody at risk from my wages was my biggest comfort. After that, I was just talking with my cousin who had this crazy idea to build a e-commerce store for a wedding invitation, and I was really intrigued by the idea because I was just seeing all Tiny Owl and a couple of other e-commerce companies really making it big, and I was thinking, why can't we drive this change as well with a different product of our own niche? So I was like thinking, okay, e-commerce is the future. Flipkart had just started making money, had just raised its first seed round. Tiger Global had not come through. And it was so exciting to see all these e-commerce companies happening in Bombay. Along with me, I was in a cohort of 7 people who joined ITC at that point. One from IIT Bombay, one from IIT Kharagpur. I was the only guy from NITT Trichy in that 7-member cohort. And 3 of them quit at that particular point of time to pursue their dreams. One guy became an assistant director. One guy joined a startup company called CityFlow, which got acquired by Uber later. And one guy joined another startup company in Delhi, which coaches for IAS exams. And I was thinking, guys, you guys are from the best IITs. You guys have come to such a premier company. At least in my sense, that was a premier company. Now, why did you quit and go join your startup just 1 year after working? It was shocking to me that somebody would take such decisions. But then that kind of like sowed the seed. Okay, you can do that too. Until then, I thought I was too risk-averse to even make such a judgment, but they kind of put the seed for me. And then I had saved up sufficient amount of money by then. I didn't really have the scope for spending in Kolkata. So I had just saved up money, a lot of it, and it was sitting with me. So I told my cousin, hey, if you're really serious about this idea, I'm willing to quit my job and come do it with you as a supply chain manager. And like I said, simultaneously, I had recruited a couple of interns who were working with me in Kolkata in my own house. And these guys were Bengalis who studied in Trichy, but they wanted to do something in summer. So we started a content management company. And I told them, like, do you guys want to work on a different idea? If I'm going to quit my job and go back from Kolkata to Chennai and blah, blah, blah. And they said yes. So I basically bit the pill and quickly made the jump. To your specific question about what made me consider that option was, one was the excitement about what the market was investing in, which was investing in e-commerce. And the person I spoke to, the founder of this company, he was really excited about that idea. The second one was, I knew I had some kind of a runway in terms of the cash I had to wait for another job before I came to one. I could spend a couple of more months and blah, blah, blah. The third thing was I was not putting anybody at risk from my own wages. If I had put somebody at risk, I would not have taken that choice. And lastly, the fourth one, and this is what I wrote in my letter to my dad, asking his permission to quit my job. I told him, like, tomorrow if I go to an MBA admissions committee and I tell them that, listen to me, I have 2 things in my life. I've worked in one of the best corporate companies, the biggest consumer product goods company in India, but I've also worked in an extremely small setup with people who do not have cash and are thinking about dreams. I've been in both these extreme ends of entrepreneurship to make a difference in business. Will you give me an admission seat? So that story, and I played it back to myself, it sounded pretty good. And yeah, my dad was convinced. He actually wrote back to me in a letter saying, Karthik, don't worry, I will support you in this adventure. Back then I felt he was very arrogant because he mentioned adventure and he didn't say startup. And I was like, how is my career an adventure for him? But then he was right. That move was a big adventure. It was a big risk. I wouldn't recommend everybody doing it, but definitely those who can afford to do it, especially when they're young, please do.
Yeah. Quick question over here. What is your view on college students starting up?
While in college?
Yeah, while in college.
I'm going to take a couple of cases from my batchmates who all started immediately out of college. I think starting while in college is fine because you have the safety net. So anyways, you're going to be protected at the end of the day if everything fails. But there are people who started along with me right out of college. I was at least a few years late. They started immediately after they graduated. And none of them sustained. All the startups, whether it was Prisky, whether it was this another, I forget all the names right now, Pomato, blah, blah, blah. All of them failed. Mm-hmm. And only one guy called Purnang Prakash, he continued to change his concept over and over and over again. His family can afford it as well, but he continued to change his concept. And finally, today, he's raised $100,000 for a startup at 28 years of age. And now he started in the virtual event space where he's found the ideal market. his investing partner is the founder of Zivame, a famous brand for lingerie, and blah blah. So to get here, he's had to go through so many cycles. He started a gaming startup where he takes a gaming console to corporate companies and hosts live events, having them play and everything. But unless you really have the grit to go through so many cycles of failure, to sustain without a huge glamorous job, a huge glamorous this thing, a profile, a high paycheck to pay for whatever adventures you want in life, unless you have that grit, it's going to be very, very difficult. Not there are enough startups that fail when you do not have the right experience, and to figure out the elements of success takes a sweet amount of time. So I would not recommend somebody starting right out of college. I know it's like an oxymoron because I did it myself, but I bit the hard pill, and luckily for me, my pivot into an US MBA at the right time was a good thing. So even though my startup in India is still making lesser than my 1-year-old startup in the US in terms of salary, it taught me a lot about life, to be prepared for the future. So yeah, if you can afford to take a risk, this is what I want to say. If you can afford to take the risk, time box how long you want to fail. Like, set yourself a target. I'll go through 1 year of failure. I'll go through 2 years of failure. That's one. Another thing. I mean, obviously, I also have suggestions as to what are some startups that are easier to win when you begin your career, rather than starting to become the next Facebook. There are some startups that are easier to win and which you can very easily succeed at, especially service startups. So, I mean, I know that's not the part of this conversation. I'll stop right here, but happy to go to other questions.
Yeah, so I think that's a very interesting point that you kind of told, regarding like college students starting up. Although there's like one end, like saying that there's a lot of risk that's there, but I feel that the whole process is like genuinely rewarding, irrespective of whether you start in college or outside. From whatever I've heard, that whole process, that whole experience that you kind of go through, like for 4 or 5 years, if you can afford that risk, taking that risk, I feel it's genuinely like a very rewarding thing. But one thing people genuinely need to understand is that not to glorify entrepreneurship like completely. There are so many people, they are like, startups is like the way to go. So I want to become like a founder, and they just like do something. So that is like another extreme. I just feel that a lot of concepts in life, right, that should always be like a perfect balance. You can't be like in the extreme. So that's definitely
I
there.
think one thing I'll just add on is that
yeah.
if you're an entrepreneurship, you develop a lot of generic set of skills for normal management, which are not considered hireable skills by a corporate company. So when you make the switch back from entrepreneurship to a company, they're going to really ask you, well, what are you good at? What are you good at as a skill that I can exploit at a junior level in my company? And that transition is very difficult to prove. You could say I manage so many people, but they're like, we're not hiring you to manage 100 people. We're not hiring you to manage risk. We're not hiring you to make strategic decisions. We have people who are like 50 years old who are doing that in our company with gray beards. So it's very. That's why you need to time box it. Because if you keep prolonging this period, you will end up having no sellable or hireable skills, making you lagging in the market for hireable talent.
I think that's part of the reason why most of the startup founders, even though like they have like failed startups, they always work on finding the next idea, the next big idea that they kind of want to work on. Like most of them, they don't really want to go back to like the corporate world. I think that's just like the broad trend that I've kind of seen. But yeah, interesting points. I think the next broad theme of conversation that I wanted to talk about with you is about your decision to do an MBA abroad. I think there are two parts to it, like doing an MBA and doing it abroad. Again, like a huge conversation on its own. But yeah, I think this is again a bit of a controversial thing, right? So because every time I kind of talk to my dad's friends, they'll ask me this question: what do you want to do 5 years down the line? Do you want to like leave India? Do you want to stay in India? Are you on Deshbhakt? All of those things. And I've always been thinking about this, and I have like my point of view. But I would love to know your point of view on how you made that decision of like leaving India and going abroad and like doing an MBA. Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Adi, unlike you, I'm not very planned in life. So for me, there were some decisions that were pre-planned. An MBA abroad was one of those pre-planned decisions by my parents, right? neither did I choose the place that I wanted to go to, the country, nor did I choose the time at which I wanted to leave. Right? It was all decided by my parents, and I gave in to that offer because only if I gave in to that offer about going for an MBA 3 years after I start working, will they let me do my startup? So that was our kind of exchange. So they agreed to have me let me quit such a big company and come back home and start a small startup within my own room, in the house that they hosted me in, right? So, and kind of my dad was partially my seed investor towards second phase of my startup before I got external funding inside. But their side of the commitment they upheld. So my side of the commitment I have upheld, and I applied after 3 years of experience. I didn't really think through these choices. I did apply to a few schools in India, like SP Jain College, like ISB, and then I forget the other ones. But I got admission at all of these colleges. And then I also got admission at US. My parents are more like in the South Indian parents. They're like, go abroad, blah, blah. It happened. I think I'm not the right person to comment on making the decision between staying in India versus abroad, but definitely if you're not going to get distracted by the lifestyle of a foreign nation, and if you're not going to get distracted by what Hollywood has to talk about a foreign country, if you really have it in your heart to give back to your nation, then it is possible for you to do a foreign MBA, which is definitely much better in quality compared to an Indian MBA, and come back in India. This whole myth about how will I come back to India after a foreign MBA and not be able to pay my education loans is kind of a very old tale. I think it's very much possible. I know many of my classmates, in fact, 40 people in my class went back to their home countries after finishing their MBA in the US. And they are doing well. They're earning extremely high wages in companies in their own countries. So it is not magic. Maybe for our previous generation, when our parents were baby boomers, making the decision to return from and reverse brain drain from a country, go back to India and settle themselves was a difficult choice because of the huge income gap, because of their extremely high saving potential in the US and all of that stuff. But in our generation, I think that the tides have turned. We are not first generation engineers, at least most of us. I mean, of course, I'm generalizing right now. We're not first generation engineers. So if our parents are able to have some kind of a risk net for themselves, we are very much in a position to come back to India after our whatever careers in the US and be in an extremely good job, very, very strong strategic role, because you can now sell to a US client sitting in India and be extremely successful. So I have numerous examples of people who have reverse brain drained in our generation and made it a reality. So I guess it's less about where do you want to do an MBA. People talk about ROI and all that bullshit. I think it's more about where is your heart. Do you really want to aspire for a lifestyle that's shown on television, or are you comfortable watching Family Man instead of Friends? So
That's a nice analogy. So I think if I were to answer that question, right, like deciding to go abroad, I'm not really sure whether my thoughts are right, but I just kind of feel that the previous generation was very different, like when they had to decide staying in India, going abroad. But at least our generation or my generation, I don't know. The thing is that with globalization and everything coming, there are a lot of global problems that are coming out. We can't just sit in India and kind of look at all of these issues, and not any single country can solve the problems on their own. So I kind of feel that doing an international degree gives you that diverse perspectives, that cross-cultural experience, irrespective of whether you're staying in that country or coming back to India. I think that exposure would definitely help, right? So you have two different experiences. You doing your MBA from Babson College, and also working in the United States. So do you feel, so what is culturally, what is the difference, be it education or the work culture? What is the difference between India and let's say US? And what do you think that college students at NIT Trichy or any of the most the premier engineering colleges, or any college for that matter, can they do differently?
Oh my God, I've thought so much about this question. I'm just going to stick to a few things that people would love to listen to. Uh, First thing is work ethic. And I'll give you an example of what work ethic is, as how simple it is. Whenever in India, I used to take a holiday, or come back after a break and have to convince someone that it was reasonable for me to take that break, I will come up with this huge story. I'll be like, I had to go this extreme thing happened. I had to come back, and it's almost a hero story for just a single day of absence. And unless you have that huge story behind your sorry, people don't accept it. People think you're being rude and arrogant and all of that stuff. In the US, there's no such bullshit. You cut to the chase and you say apologies. Nobody says sorry, at least in a corporate environment. Apologies, this happened. I'll make up for it. So you're more solution oriented than you are excuse oriented in terms of like the magnitude of the mistake that you did. Instead of that, you're talking about what is the fastest way you can resolve it. So there are very subtle things like these that are work culture issues that we do not get trained in, and it becomes a disaster when that's why when our colleagues, I'm in a strategy consulting firm, and naturally there are a lot of Indians in the analytics divisions or data science divisions of our strategy consulting firm. When you look at them having a very different work culture and ethos, you see this difference. Like clearly, we're not able to grow up the ladder as much as a white American or somebody who's a Indian who's grown up in the US, because they are well versed with the work culture over here. So work culture is a huge difference. It's so many subtle things that we need to learn in order to improvise ourselves. Many of us adopt the work culture of our bosses, and that's not the best strategy to go about, because they themselves must be learning it from other people who are taking it up. So try to use books as a way to expose you to good work culture. Try to expose yourself to work culture through other means. And do not rely on the single source person who's your boss and assume that you can beat him after he leaves. Just like, today's daughter-in-laws try to become tomorrow's mother-in-laws and are rude and arrogant. Don't try to do that in corporate life. It doesn't work. That's one huge difference. The other big difference I see between US and India is, at least in corporate life, is that there's a very clear line between personal and professional choices. And nobody will judge you or excuse you or assess you based on what you do in your personal life. You can be a single dad with another affair. You can have 2 children and 4 pets. You can have all the things that can go wrong in somebody's life and then still come back to office. But you will be judged from the time that you enter the office and the work that you produce. So that freedom of not being judged for everything else that you are, the caste that you represent, the religion that you are, the kind of hardships that you take on, that's excess sympathy that comes from the personal things that stay outside of office, inside office, all of that bullshit is cut. So you can get right into it, work, and let your work speak for itself. That's a huge cultural difference between India and the US, which I've always felt. I myself used to, in my own startup, bias against certain employees because they had single parents, or they had very difficult circumstances where they had to pay back the loans or get their sisters married, right? So these guys I was more considerate about. These guys, I thought it's okay for them to work less. So I was actively thinking about them like a nursery school. Like, oh, is your parents sick? Okay, I'm not going to let you inside school today. Something like that. Like my sister called my startup a nursery school. I shouldn't have been that way. I should have been objective. I don't care who you are, drop that behind you. But when you take your shoes off and step into the office, you are right now this particular employee. And unless you perform well in that function, everything else topples. So I think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs who are reverse brain drain graduates from US, they go back and they start up in India. I think they're really successful because they figured out this work culture issue, and it translates into several things. I've overspoken, but would love to listen to Adi. Do you have any?
No, but I think that's.
Yeah, go on.
No, honestly, I have no say on this particular topic. I was just curious. This was a very selfish question, actually, that I wanted to ask. What's the difference? I honestly have no experience, so I don't have any comments on that as of now. maybe like 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, who knows? Like I can't plan for shit right now.
When
So
you work
yeah.
in a large company and you're entering one, make sure you learn from people across the phone. You will be naturally working with several clients in a global environment. Try to learn a little bit about their work culture. Um, the best work culture in the world is in Scandinavian nations. The next best is in the nations right below that, between Mediterranean and Scandinavia, like Switzerland and so on. And a moderately decent work culture is in the US. But just learn from people across the phone and you'll go a long way.
Yeah, cool. Definitely, Karthik. Thank you so much for that. With that said, I'm pretty much done with like most of the questions that I wanted to ask. I think this the final question or the final thoughts that I had was, I know you kind of made the statement that, your motto in life is like can't plan for shit. But I'm just curious to know, like, next 30, 40 years, do you have like some mission statement that you're kind of like working towards? Anything that you want to like accomplish? Broad theme, what would you want to do? What are your future plans?
Right now, I have one mission statement. Um, and okay, there's one mission statement that's been consistent throughout my life. And there's one point in time mission statement I have. I'm going to tell both to you. The point in time mission statement is helping dentists of color succeed. And I've kind of reoriented my life. I'm taking up a new job next week. I've started a startup and I'm starting another startup I started it last week. All of these things are focused on this one mission, helping dentists of color succeed. In the US, people bias everybody based on their color. So dentists of color means everybody who's not white. That's my point in time mission statement. But my consistent statement ever since I was in like college and I first framed this was helping people get from X to X plus 1. And what I mean by that is I want to take educated, talented, high potential individuals and help and give them some direction for the next step. I think my greatest joy is in making that happen for people. There are enough smart people in the world, I believe, who can help the downtrodden, the underserved, the uncared for, and all of that. But I think it's the smart people like us who lack direction. And if somebody can at least tell them, I can't tell you every step in life, but I'll tell you the next step. Let me help you find the next step. So if I can help anybody in life find the next step in their life, or just give them some kind of inkling of what that will look like, that is where I seek the greatest joy, and I'll always seek opportunities in life that take me there.
Yeah, no, I think that's like pretty obvious, like whatever you said, because like the first time that we kind of met, you kind of did the very similar thing with like us and like a group of other friends that I kind of had. Like you took us from X to X plus 1, gave us like so much confidence. We learned so much from you. You've been like a personal mentor for me in like college. I think that's part of the reason why like I wanted to bring you down over here and let everyone kind of experience who like Karthik is and the kind of person he is. Like he's always like ready to help. But yeah, just wanted to say that. But anyways, Karthik, thank you so much for spending probably like an hour. I'm not really sure how long this video is going to be. But yeah, thank you so much for doing it. It's absolutely amazing getting to know your thoughts and opinions and how your journey has been.